Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome to another edition of the Livin The Dream podcast. My name is Rishi Barran. I work at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting at Full Sail University. We have had some tremendous graduates come through this program, and some I've gotten to know for a while. One of them with us today, the great Joe Branham, or if you prefer, call him Sheriff Joe Bags, because that's his name on his show, Ram Showcase. He now works for 94.3 Kilo FM in Colorado Springs, where he is your on-air personality, taking you through the nighttime on the radio. Joey Bags, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Thank you so much for talking with me today, man. It's a good time.
In case you can't tell, Joe is a big 49ers fan. I'm just kidding. LA Rams fan, and he had a wonderful year last year, got to celebrate a Super Bowl championship.
Guys, Rams, Super Bowl champions. I can't say it enough. It's so much fun. What an incredible week this has been.
Unfortunately, not been quite the same this season, but no one is more passionate about the Rams than Joe. So if you don't already know about him, check him out on Ram Showcase. Even if you're a fan of other teams, like, he is just so engaging and entertaining. But that's kind of his side gig in addition to his new full-time gig that he's had and worked really hard to get. So let's take it back to the beginning, Joe. Where did this dream of being a sportscaster start for you?
Man, it's a long time ago, actually. I was just posting in like NFL related Facebook groups, and I got reached out to because I just like the long posts that I would have were essentially just mini articles. And somebody reached out to me who had a website and asked me if I wanted to write about the Rams. I asked him how much it paid. He said nothing, so I didn't respond. And then about 2 months later, it was like, you know what? All right, I'll do that. It's a good outlet to let my Rams knowledge out instead of just unloading it on my family members and friends who didn't ask for it or want it at all. So started writing about the Rams, and then just kind of snowballed. Just really liked covering the team. It was just a good time.
So it sounds like you went from one of the people who reads stuff and watches stuff to the person producing the content. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. I got to a point where the content that I wanted didn't exist, so I figured I would just go and make it.
What a concept. And that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for people who can produce something that no one else is doing. There's a lot of people who can cover the Rams or any NFL team or any sports team for that matter. But how do you do it in an entertaining and educational in a way that's people just don't get right now? That's how you reach an audience. Joe has done a fantastic job with that. How old were you when you started all that?
I would say probably about 22, 23 that I started diving into covering instead of just being a fan.
Okay, so let's take it back even further. When did sports become a big part of your life?
Well, I was born in 91, and then I didn't really, obviously, for that first little bit there, get too into it, but there was about, I would say, maybe 6 or 7 years old that I started kind of watching sports. My dad always had sports on, no matter what time of year it was, whether it was baseball, football, whatever. So big sports family. I was always on TV at home. So kind of just, I would say, really started getting into it about 9 or 10 though. I really loved Marshall Faulk. That was my guy. And then when he went over to the Rams, it was just kind of just locked in, and I loved watching him play. It was so exciting. Any given play, you never knew what was going to happen when Marshall Faulk was out there. So it was very exciting to just watch, just wait for the next play. You know, something crazy might happen with this guy.
So that's what I was wondering, was how the Rams fandom came in. So it was always funny to us, all of us instructors. Joe would have all his Rams stuff. You know, he'd show up to the Zoom meetings with his Rams background and everything. We quickly learned about his show. And we just assumed, you know, he's LA or St. Louis. No, he's in Colorado Springs, right? So It started with a player, Marshall Faulk. Were you a Colts fan before that? How did that all start?
I wouldn't even say I was really a Rams fan that first year. I was just a Marshall Faulk fan. But yeah, being out here in Colorado, I could tell you right now it is extremely snowy. It's about 20 degrees outside. So being the Rams fan, it's super out of place, I guess, for the atmosphere. But yeah, I was just a Marshall Faulk fan. So the year that the Rams won the Super Bowl against the Titans, I wasn't necessarily like, oh man, the Rams won. It was like, oh, Marshall Faulk got his ring. You know, that was all I really cared about at the time. And then after a few years, by the time Marshall Faulk retired, and then Steven Jackson had, kind of taken his place, then it's kind of rolled over, and it was like, well, I think I just like this team, and it's kind of locked in on it.
And you won't find a bigger fan, again, if you look at his background, that says the whole story for you right there with Joe Branham. So you became a Rams fan. You eventually started posting on these message boards and that kind of stuff. Like what specifically were you looking at that point? Because obviously technology has changed over the years in terms of what's been available to fans who want their voice to be heard. What were some of the original places you were posting content, not necessarily your own content, but your messages?
Yeah, like I said, it started with just the Facebook groups, and it was just an outlet of just I needed to have conversations with people, and it became like admin of different Rams Facebook pages and stuff. And then his name's Mark Wilson, who reached out to me, who had the website called truelovesports.com, and that was where that became the outlet. It was a place that I could put an article, put a full feature on, doing little ridiculous things like on Father's Day. At the time, it was covering like James Laurinaitis and his dad, who was the wrestler, and then Chris Long and his dad, and stuff like that. Just kind of diving in and just talking about the Rams. That was just the most fun part of it, and just getting anything I could out. Like I said, like doing the Father's Day stuff, or just little game previews, which. So the game previews that are part of Rams Showcase now, those kind of originated from the structure of the way I used to write them out. And then I don't know, I just felt like writing was not my personality. I felt like kind of confined with writing. So I felt like I needed to do more, which is where the show was born.
Yeah. So take us through the process of putting Rams Showcase together, and how did that all hatch and become what it is now?
Well, I had one article that was at the time the Rams didn't have a quarterback. This was pre-Jared Goff. The Rams were in St. Louis at the time, and I had an article that was titled "Rams Needs That Aren't Quarterback." With like kind of in my brain, it was like, we need a quarterback, yes, but there's other things that the Rams need. And that article, that title was basically translated by a good chunk of people. It was like, the Rams do need a quarterback. What is this guy talking about? And so I think they thought that I said that we don't. And yeah, so it's like, all right, well, my point's not getting across. I think I need to talk about it. I think I need to speak it. And then it was right in that same window that the Rams moved to Los Angeles, that the approval happened in January of 2016. And it's like, you know what, this team, I already am covering them. Now they just moved to one of the biggest cities in the country. I think I need to hit it, and so Ram Showcase was born. March 15th, 2016 was the very first episode, and it was terrible.
Well, it's certainly come a long way, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Somewhere in that mix, you decided that you were serious about this broadcasting and putting that fan voice out there that you've had. And I know that you took some journalism classes at Pikes Peak Community College. I know that's not on the top of Pikes Peak because I've been there. There's just like that little hut there. So you didn't have to go up in that and have to struggle breathing while you were at school, right? But take us through what you got out of that and how that helped you.
Well, yeah, the journalism aspect of it was kind of an interesting thing, because that was actually part of when I was just writing. That was when I started doing that. And I actually did just one semester, and I kind of had to take a step back and be like, I don't know if writing is the path for me. And I didn't want to continue and just kind of feel like I didn't want to feel like I was burning my time with something that I didn't ultimately want to do, which writing was just not, like I said, it's just not my personality. I feel like I'm too loud and outspoken and too obnoxious to be for my content to be consumed in a written form.
What's going on, Rams fans? Welcome into a special edition of On Patrol. Today, I've got Kenny and Nava. Come on! Proud hosts of Living Local on Fox 21 in Colorado Springs. Guys, thank you for joining me.
In your opinion, it wasn't the greatest show, so I'm sure at the time it felt like it was amazing, but you've talked about the evolution of that. Where did you start? Like, what was the earliest version of Ram Showcase like?
Ooh, yeah. The earliest version of Ram Showcase was just audio. So video's only been around for a couple of years on Ram Showcase. So I was just sitting in my little room, my little desk set up, and I I had really no plan. It was just kind of like, all right, well, let's just hit the mic and let's see what I talk about. And it was the first episode was called The State of the Rams, and I basically just laid out like this is what's going on, and it was only like 15 minutes long, and just it's like this is our quarterback right now. This is our draft picks coming up. Yeah, that's about it. And it's so funny looking back on it. All the stuff that I've learned now, like it opens with welcome all you Rams fans from all over the world, which is the funniest thing to look back on now. That like that is like not how you would intro a show ever. But yeah, it's just I still keep it published. It will always be public just because I simply love that you can go back and hear the very first episode and just see how far it's come.
And that's what we say to all students like you, Joe, is that those portfolio pages that you build for us, that's what one of the values is of it, is you can see the progression of someone growing by looking at it. And I think anybody that goes through your materials will see that as well. And that's why having that stuff out on the internet to be able to show to potential employers in many cases can really help out. So it seemed like even when you were talking about those early articles, Joe, you had the sense of how to connect with an audience and how to, as you noted, give them something that's not already out there. Where do you think that natural instinct came from to be able to realize that so early on?
That's a really good question. I'm not totally sure. It was just kind of I always like to stay busy. So I think at the time it was just I had a lot of free time and it was trying to fill that space a little bit, and consuming Rams content was kind of where it was at. But at that time, like this was 2000, I don't know, like however long ago, but it was the content now. I mean, you can find content anywhere about just about anything in multiple different versions of it. But at that time, that was not the case. Finding a Rams podcast or finding anybody writing about the Rams, it was few and far between. And it was really just the big websites, NFL.com, ESPN.com is where you would find your stuff. And you'd know the few amateur guys that were getting it done. And so I felt like I could do it better than them. And so hopped on it.
You were ahead of the game before it became such a big thing. You knew what the fans wanted because you were one of the fans. I think that's probably has a lot to do with it too. We're talking to radio host Joe Branham. We're talking about Ram Showcase right now, but deeper into this conversation, we're going to get into his full-time job he has at 94.3 Kilo in Colorado Springs, where he is a radio personality. Joe, at some point, you had worked many different types of jobs. How did those experiences help you to form your path for where your career was going?
Well, I did healthcare for a long time. I was working with adults with disabilities for about 9 years, and that was a blast. But it was, I still liked that. I never ended up hating that or anything like. But I felt like there was a point where I kind of like run my course in that, and wanted to kind of, instead of helping everybody else do what they want to do, kind of get a little selfish with it and kind of follow my own dream. And I've always been a big sports fan. And I've also just had other jobs where they were, for lack of a better term, like boring enough to motivate me to want other stuff. And like that just super lowbrow, just you come in, sit at your desk, do your job for 8 hours, and then go home. That was very motivating for me to kind of keep on pushing. And I like talking, I like interacting, I like making content, and that was kept me going for it. Now I get to do it full time, which is fun, but it's those boring jobs, they helped me a lot as far as like, all right, if I want to get out of this, I need to work hard outside of here. So,
and that's why experience comes into play, and that includes in our industry, Joe, is you want to know not just what you want to do, but what you don't want to do and what the alternatives are. And there's no greater motivation sometimes than doing something that isn't for you, to know that, hey, my heart's not in this. Maybe it is a little bit, as you said, but not fully in it where it would be in the broadcasting realm for you. I know that's how it was for me when my first job was working at McDonald's, and I quickly learned I didn't want to work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. I'm sure that motivation paid off to some degree as well. And at some point for you, this idea of wanting to do something you love with all the experiences you had brought you to Full Sail University. How did you learn about us and make that decision?
Well, the timing was absolutely unreal to me because I had had my podcast already. I was doing Ram Showcase already, and I got into like this, I don't want to say an argument, but it's like a whole discussion with two of my dad's friends, and they kept on telling me like, "Hey, college is the way to go. Like, why wouldn't you do that stuff?" And I was just pushing back. I didn't want to go to college. I'd already tried Pikes Peak Community College, and it was like, that's I just don't think it's for me. And one of them asked me a question, and it was like, would you rather be the guy with a degree or the guy with the experience? And I didn't really have an answer for that. And so I was like, well, I want to do the experience, but obviously I understand why a degree would be helpful. And his response to me was, why not be the guy with both? You already have the experience. Like you're one away from having both of those. And who would you hire kind of thing? And I didn't really have a response to that. So I I kind of just accepted that, and then I left. I remember like he kind of got me, and I like went home, and then I want to say it was within the next like 1 or 2 days. It was very like almost movie timeline of I was on Facebook and I was just scrolling and saw the sportscasting ad, and it was like, oh, let me check this out, and then talked on the phone with somebody for like way too long. I would say maybe like 2 hours that I was on the phone with whoever was the recruiter, I suppose. But it's I had all these like rebuttals to like, well, what about this though? Like I don't know if I like, and then it just kept shutting that down, and so that it ended that conversation ended with me basically enrolling and getting going. So it was kind of crazy how it all happened. That conversation with my dad's friends to like filling out paperwork to start Full Sail was like about a week. So
It
that's
just
kind of a
happened so quick.
thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Like even me coming to Full Sail was similar in a different way that, I was working in TV full time and I still enjoyed doing it, but I always had in the back of my mind, I think I want to teach. I want to teach. And I gotten a little experience. And kind of like you said, the timing came up where I just saw, bam, I saw a tweet from Gus Ramsey only because a couple of my friends who knew him had liked it. And it's like, this is exactly like the type of thing that I would want to do. So it's kind of weird how those opportunities in life come your way, but then you got to have the courage to make that decision. And you did, and you came to us. And that experience, I think you already had, played right into the hands of the type of students we want that can not only have something coming in. Some students come in with no knowledge of the industry. Some, like you, have already been doing things. They're both valuable. They're both able to do things at a high level by the time that they come out. But for you, you already had that base stream knowledge. You just needed a little bit of polishing in terms of where to put it in the right direction. So you said Pikes Peaks Community College didn't quite feel right for you there. What did feel right for you when you came to Full Sail?
I think just the whole atmosphere of everything of like I remember going in right away in the very first class. It's the most, I think kind of just get used to the structure of everything kind of class. And I like right away, I liked the speed of everything. Like I think at Pikes Peak, it being a normal a normal college, just a normal school, everything's kind of slow. And I am very much like go, 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 go. I get really bored really fast. Like those jobs that I'm discussing, like 2 months in, I'm like, all right, I gotta figure something out. Like so I get bored really fast, and so the pace of it was very, very beneficial for myself, and sometimes to a fault because some of the classes I think were too fast, and it's like, oh man, I wanted to do more of that, But yeah, I think the pace was very beneficial, and just the whole vibe of everything. Like a lot of the instructors, just like you could tell the excitement was there. It wasn't just just all right, here's the information, here's your assignment, I'll grade it. It was an actual a genuine effort to make us better at this, and that was obviously the goal. I didn't want to just come in to pass. I wanted to come in to learn what I'm doing and get better at it. So that was helpful.
And you did. Now look at your show now. Like I've seen it from its early stages, which was already pretty good. I'll be honest with you, Joe. You were doing a really good job when you came to us, but now it's just exploded into what it's become throughout the whole thing. And early on, little did you know at the time, you made a lifelong friend in your early classes in Kurt Steele. How did that partnership you guys had to push each other and work together for greatness help you throughout your time with us?
That kind of stuff is invaluable, especially being online. I'm out here in Colorado. Like what felt like for a little while felt like I was on an island. Like it was just me and the instructors, and then random other people that I'm commenting on their posts every week and stuff. And then yeah, it was so helpful to kind of have conversations with somebody and be able to know that you're not by yourself. I mean, that was such a big thing. And then you get a guy as awesome as Kurt, who's as motivated as I was, and because there was one person that I kind of teamed up with a little early on, and then uh, they were missing some classes and kind of falling behind and stuff, and was like, all right, well, like I gotta find somebody else who's in it like I am. And Kurt was exactly that. Had a podcast, was doing stuff, wanted to implement what he was learning right away into his show. That was exactly my goal. Was as soon as I learned something, it's installed into Ram Showcase, and that I just carry that on, which was super helpful. But to have Kurt and just have somebody know that you're not alone in it, and have that kind of some kind of camaraderie with, I don't know, it's that was the one plus I guess from COVID was that the whole world kind of realized that you could do that. But I think we started just a little bit early, pre-COVID, of connecting via the internet and getting together that way, which helped so much get through this program.
It's nice to be ahead of the curve. You were with your early work, and then you were with that where everybody's now doing the virtual thing, and you already have the production value and the elements to really make that succeed. And I agree with you about it's hard as an online student when you're just on your own in your room. Like, I mean, different people have different support systems, family, friends, whoever are in their lives. But in terms of interaction with classmates, a lot of that's being self-motivated to come to the Zoom sessions, self-motivated to reach out to them when you're not doing classwork. What tips do you have for someone new to online education for how to succeed in that type of an environment?
Definitely try to team up. Get with people like I did with Kurt, and I know that other students have done that too. Like after us, like that kind of went through, I think, a decent amount of time after us, kind of formed groups and had a show together and stuff, which was, I think that's exactly it. Because those are the people you hear from the most. It seems like the ones who team up and they're doing stuff actively while going through the classes. Like those are the ones that I see their names the most often, which is really cool. But I would say that, and just plan it out, like have a schedule. I knew that on Mondays, like I was doing certain things. I was doing, if I had to reading to do, that was the day to do it, and sticking with it. I mean, and yeah, I get like to the point there at the end, that final class is like, oh my gosh, I don't know how much longer I could do this. But it was like 2 weeks left. It was like, all right, I can do 2 more weeks. Like I've done this for months, so yeah, scheduling it out and just keeping with it, I think, is the biggest thing. It is very fast. It cruises through. By the time you like looking forward at it, when you're in like month 3, you're like, dang, I'm going to be doing this for a while. And then you look back on it, he's like, oh, that was nothing. That was so fast. Like my life has flown by in this time. So yeah, team up and just keep working, get a schedule, and stick with it. I feel like that's the most basic stripped down way to say it, but it is true.
Talking to Joe Branham, he has made Ram Showcase a huge hit on the internet and throughout social media world. Joe, we'll get to this again at the end, but how can they follow you if they want to and take part in the show's activities?
At Sheriff Joe Bags, at Ram Showcase. That's just about everywhere on social media, and YouTube is the big push now for Ram Showcase. Just search Ram Showcase on YouTube.
You brought up the fact that every time you learned something in class, you tried to apply it to your show as quickly as possible. What were some of the things that you incorporated while you were at Full Sail?
One of the biggest things was the graphics, the on-screen graphics. I think that upped the quality of my show immediately, having lower thirds and doing full screens and stuff like that. I think that was a massive one. The vocal training, that I think took not just my show, but my whole life to like another level of being able to communicate in a different way. And yeah, just be a little bit more conscious about the inflections and how you're saying things. And now it obviously works out quite a bit with my current position that I'm working in, but I'm talking into a lot of microphones a lot. So yeah, that helped a lot. And then, yeah, I would just say the communication of getting that point across, like, well, the best bit of advice that I got that I still hang on to now, that I still am keeping in when I'm writing down my script for my show, is tell me something I don't know and do it in an entertaining way.
I know where you got that.
I took that to heart, and it was like, okay, let's, all right, I need to find information that not every Rams fan has, and I need to tell them in an exciting way, not bore them with it, with just numbers of like, oh, we're ranked this and this with this many yards per game. Like, get fun with it, and have fun. So yeah, those are a couple of things that I was able to take right away and just immediately upon learning increased the quality of my show.
That quote is from Jeff Schetzel, who was your first instructor in our program. At the time, he was teaching Intro to Sportscasting. And I bring that up a lot because I've heard him say that too, Joe. And It is such a perfect, really a motto for our program in terms of, and really for the whole broadcasting world, what it takes to get someone's attention and how to connect with someone. And I'm glad you also brought up the idea of transmitting these skills not only into the business and the work side, but you said it helped you as a person. And that's one of the things we want to implement as well, is these are life skills, not just broadcasting skills. How do you take the lessons from this program and apply them to your everyday life, not counting the broadcasting stuff you do?
I just kind of broken down that whole, like, worrying about what other people are doing. Yeah, like I said, being online it's such a weird thing, being like feeling like you're on an island. Like, we're doing assignments and I'm going out, like, it's just me and my camera, and I'm going to like the World Arena out here and like doing stories that don't even actually exist, and like people are like walking by, and it's kind of weird. Like, so you just kind of have to break down a lot of those, like, because that's like an embarrassing thing to do. Like, initially, like at first blush, you're like, oh man, I don't want to go out here. Like, there's people I'm just by myself with this little DSLR. Like, it's just kind of like a weird thing. And it's like, I don't know, just breaking out of that stuff. It's like, what, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. They don't actually care. Nobody's going to be like going home like, you should have seen what this weirdo was doing at the lake, so who cares? And just, yeah, the confidence, just, the whole attitude of just that. And I think a lot of the different little tiny aspects, the vocal training, the presence on camera, the whole go out and do your stuff, like you have the equipment, go create something, go out into the world and make something. Like, I don't know, it just, I think a confidence level was increased with all this, the little tiny bits of knowledge. Just take all of it and just go out and be more, I guess, obnoxious. Be loud with it,
Yeah, if you watch Joe's show or if you listen to him on the radio, that confidence is evident.
That was the first time I listened to that song with headphones on. Whoa. All right. That's a game changer. All right. Pretty cool stuff. All right. I teased it earlier. I have 2 more pairs of tickets to check out the Colorado Springs Comic-Con. I also have a pair of tickets to check out the Butcher Babies. That show coming through later on this month on the 28th at the Black Sheep. But you know what? Because I said I have more tickets to the Comic-Con, I think it's time to open up Kilo's ticket window again.
He has found his voice. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants to convey. And a lot of that credit goes to you, in addition to what we've tried to implement with you in the program. Now, you were, I think, like the 3rd graduating class. You were pretty early on. What did you think of the early version of the online class? Because much like you, we've evolved and tried to make it better based on your feedback every month. What was it like going through the program in its early stages?
I actually kind of really liked that. There was something to be said about the fact of like, oh man, like everybody's going to be like, it's going to be better later, like we should have waited. But it was also kind of nice to be like in like the test groups, so to speak, of like, well, let's try this. Let's see if this works, kind of thing. And I know that things have been changed quite a bit since I've been done. Graduated a while ago now, about 2 years ago. So yeah, I know that things are quite different, but I think it was a fun way to kind of take the approach of like, we're helping pave the way a little bit, with like me and Kurt and Mike and Taylor, like we were just kind of being in there as like a test group. I think that was kind of fun.
And if it was a test, you guys passed. You're all doing so well. And, you know, you brought up Mike and Taylor, two other students who you kind of got into your little group with Kurt as time went on. And you guys all pushed each other so hard. You were still some of our best online students we've had because you worked so hard. You did great work. And that camaraderie, again, you were one of those first groups that had that camaraderie that has built the foundation to which we stand these days. But it wasn't always easy, Joe. I know that it was hard after graduation, being patient, trying to wait for your opportunity to break in. How did you get through the period of, wow, I'm still doing Ram Showcase, but I want to do this full time, and those opportunities not necessarily being out there right away for you?
Well, I think ultimately the timing of graduation was terrible considering, you know, how 2020 was. But yeah, October of 2020, nothing was available. Like I was looking everywhere, and it was everybody had been, you know, furloughed or let go from their positions, and those were about the time that we had graduated. Those jobs were opening back up, but the people that were furloughed and let go were first pick. So it was so far back of the line of trying to get for like these jobs, you know, being just a graduate, but people have the work experience, you know, and so it was really behind the eight ball there. And I think timing wise was just really unfortunate, but it was, I don't know, just keeping it in my brain of like, I didn't expect to, you know, graduate and then my phone's just ringing off the hook the very next day from like, you know, all these big corporations or anything. So it's just remembering that of like, all right, you know, it's still got to do some work, you know, it's definitely not done, and just keep on moving, keep on doing the show, and eventually something will pan out, you know, like the world will get back to decently normal at some point, which I think is finally where we're at about now, is where the world is back to mostly normal. So yeah, it was just it was a patient waiting game. It was frustrating. I will say that it was, you know, you graduate and I'm working at a property management company, and it was like, what am I doing? Like, why did I spend all this time? So it was frustrating, but it was just reminding myself of like, that's not how it works. You don't graduate and then ESPN just blows your phone up the next day with all these positions, you know, so.
Well, you never fully lost that belief in yourself, which is what got you here. You were willing to keep pushing. Can you take us through the period from that time, which was frustrating, to where you are now? How did you get from the frustration of not having the job to now being in a pretty good place?
Yeah, it was. I stayed at the property management company for a little while, so I was just doing that in Ram Showcase. It was a good little spot for me. I was, you know, doing fine financially. I had the show. I had good time to do the show and everything. And at that time, unloading the schedule of school was very relaxing. You know, that was, especially those last few months, they get a little hectic, and so it's kind of time to breathe a little bit, but also just kind of know that it's on its way. And then I had been trying to work at Kilo for so long. Like it was kind of like a childhood dream. So my mom told me a story. I'll share it with you briefly. I don't know if you would remember, there was a little purple radio DJ toy. I used to have one of those when I was in elementary school, like third and fourth grade. And I used to go into my garage and pretend I was a DJ for the station that I work for now. So it's kind of how it all was supposed to go, apparently. But I have a buddy who does sales at a local TV station, and he told me a position was open there. So at that time, I kind of was like, well, you know what, maybe doing on-air radio stuff just isn't going to be my path. And so I went over there, and then of course, like 2 months.
Tell us about what you did there too. What was that experience like, working at the TV station behind the scenes in a different type of department?
Yeah, so I was doing traffic, which is just scheduling and placing commercials. I would download spots from advertisers, make sure that they're at master control. A lot of interactions with master control, making sure they have what they need to do. But it was just commercials. That was really all. I was on the sales team, but I was not actively, you know, doing any sales. It was just sitting on wide orbit scheduling commercials. So it was fine. Great people. I loved the people that worked there, but the job itself, it was very, very redundant, very come in, sit down and drag spots over, make sure that the separation's all good and all that. And it was a grind. That's what I'll say about that.
But it was a step forward for you. It was a step in the right direction. It got you experience. And we often say, If what you want to have light up for you right when you graduate doesn't happen right away, be open to getting your foot in there, meeting some people, making some connections, and next thing you know, you're like your little purple DJ and you're doing your job.
Yeah,
So,
it was cool too, just to be in the building. Like, because even though the position that I got specifically was maybe not the most interesting thing or anything, but being in the building, being around the people, so like having the conversations every day with the sports director and the other sports anchor and stuff, just kind of like picking their brain a little bit about different things. Like, just being in there was such a great experience. So I definitely don't take any of it back, but it was fun.
So how'd you get from there? You had your buddy that connected you there. How'd you get from there to end up on Kilo?
Well, I had gone to a bunch of different remotes that Kilo does here locally, different like brewery stops or anything like that, and I just kind of chat with the DJs a little bit. And I was made it such a point to be like not one of the annoying people, so like come in, say hello, and do that kind of thing, have a little conversation, then I'd leave them alone, But it eventually became where they kind of knew me. I was kind of a regular around and stuff like that, but I also wasn't. I hope I wasn't overbearing at all. So actually I was at work one day over at Fox 21, and I got an email from the afternoon on-air DJ, and it said, "Hey, by the way, we have a position open. I think you should apply." It was like,
Wow.
like my first instinct was anger, because like I just started like at this TV station. So you got to be kidding me. I tried for like 8 years of just like picking their brains. I want to try to go in and see if I can find how many times I've submitted my resume onto the website. I want to see if that's possible, because it's probably a comical number, like just ridiculous times I've tried to be like, "Hey, look at me," and then I didn't respond to that email right away. And then it was the midday person that sent me an email later on and said, "Hey, by the way, we have a position open. I think you should apply." And it was like, all right, well, two of their full-time on-air DJs just told me I should apply, so I think I should maybe try, and had to make a fake air check because I didn't have any.
What did you do
So
for that? How'd you do that?
I just I took some songs that I knew that the station played, and I downloaded those and then just recorded, just pretending like essentially the same thing I was doing as an elementary kid, pretending I was a DJ. And just I listened for a while to see what they were doing and trying to see if I could pick up any little things that maybe the average listener wouldn't know about, and just tried it out and sent it in, and it was good enough. So
Lots of lessons I think to take from that. Number one, persistence pays off. You sent your resume 9 million times, and eventually the one landed, and it worked out for you. Number two is the power of connecting with people. You were present. They say that 80% of life is just showing up. Joe Branham always shows up. Joe showed up at each event. And after a while, he talked to enough of them. They knew who he was. They knew what his thoughts were. He wasn't rude to them. He was courteous. He was professional. And then number three is, I forgot what number three is now. There was a third lesson that you talked about at the end there, but just, I know what it is. Number three is research. You researched what they did, and you knew what they were looking for. A big part of the job application process is matching what your skills are and what your talents are and your experience with what the other company that wants you needs. It's not about you, it's about them. What do they want? And if you know what they want and you can mold your application to fit that, which is exactly what Joe did, then bingo, there you are at Kilo. Which leads us to the next big question. Joe, what's it like to be living the dream right now?
Oh man, it's still kind of unreal to me. I'm creeping on a year. It'll be a year in February that I started at Kilo, and I mean it goes really fast. That's one thing that I quickly realized, is that you have no time to kind of sit and enjoy what you're doing. The second anything's done, it's what's next. You do an on-air break and you don't get to be like, "Oh man, I nailed that one." It's when am I speaking next? What am I saying next? Do I have an ad read that I need to do? Or is this sponsored by anybody? Like, you're just always moving forward.
Kilo rocks with Rob Zombie. Before that, new rock out of Slipknot with Yen.
And it's not just your airship, it's everything. It's every event. You end an event, it's what's coming up next, what's our next remote, what's our next promotional thing. You know, we're already promotional wise, we're already like pretty deep into next year on stuff. So it's very fast paced and very chaotic, but I think I kind of thrive in that. And being the night guy at a rock radio station is quite an interesting little adventure that I've taken in my life, and it's led to growing a mustache and growing the hair out a little bit, because I figured, how long and for how many times am I going to be the nighttime DJ at a rock radio station? So might as well live the life a little bit, and I think the most fun that I have is when we have bands in for interviews, but they need a ride to the station. So I take the truck and I go pick up the band from the venue and bring them back. And I think for me, I love that, because you kind of get that moment of like the doors close in the truck and they kind of take like a where they don't have to be a character. They don't have to be the band. They're just a couple of dudes hanging out, so it's so much fun. I don't know what I expected. It's a lot of what I did expect, but it's also I've just been able to get in the room with some really good people. It's such a fun environment. Being radio, obviously, you get a lot of really interesting personalities in the building, and everybody's a blast, and it's just a good time.
I can just hear it in your voice. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories about those rides over, or any stories about bands, conversations you've had and any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I'll say the band Shaman's Harvest. I had to go pick them up, and they were great guys, great dudes. But they were asking me if I'm going to the show, and it's kind of I say it a lot. It's a kind of a sick joke. I get access to all these concerts and tickets and stuff, but I work nights, so I can never actually go. But they asked me. I was taking them back, and they asked me if I was going to the show. I was like, oh no, I got to be on air at 7. I'm on 7 to midnight, and so they kept calling me No Go Show Kilo Joe the rest of the day, and that's been a running joke. I don't know if they actually the guy, the lead singer from Pop Evil, Lee Kakati, it was just him that I picked up. The rest of the band didn't come, and so it got like one-on-one time with this front man to this band, and it was unbelievable. We're leaving the station, going back to the venue, and he asked me if the studio truck, he's like, does this thing have Bluetooth? And I was like, yeah. Like, I kind of set it up for him. He starts showing me songs that they have definitely not released. They're not even fully mastered yet. And he's like showing me all this stuff. He's singing along. He's having a good time. He stops the radio and he's like, hey, man, he's like, this might sound weird. I need Taco Bell right now. I was like, all right, let's find a Taco Bell. Like, who am I to say no to Lee Kakati? So we went over to a Taco Bell. He bought me a burrito. We're sitting hanging out, and there's like a moment where I'm kind of standing there inside this Taco Bell with Lee Kakati, and I told him, I was like, I'm going to tell this story for the rest of my life, just so you know.
It's like you're living, like it's like you're in like the movie Almost Famous or something. Like you're living that life, being around. I mean, it's not quite traveling with them all the way, but you're getting this inside access people don't get.
Yeah,
that's so fun. You talked about growing up, the hair and the beard and all that. What would you say your style is on the air at this point?
Ooh, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'm kind of goofy. I have like stories that I tell about like making ramen in the microwave that I'll tell a quick little story on air about.
Making myself some ramen in the microwave, and I ruined it and had to run to my car to get a new pack. I didn't even know you could ruin that.
I don't know. I try to keep it fun and light, and it's nights, so I've got a lot more freedom. I don't think I've really pushed the boundaries on what I can and cannot say, because I don't know if that's fully my personality to get super super edgy, I guess. But yeah, I think I'm kind of the goofy night guy with kind of silly puns and dumb jokes and stuff.
How did the process of finding your voice you had through our program help you with the whole on-air persona thing?
There was a lot of, I would say there's some trial and error in there. There was, saying, like, trying to have like a break that it was like, all right, I'm going to say this, and then like I'll end it on this. And it's like, it ends and like, that was not very good. And then you go back into the back and pull it, because everything's recorded you go back and pull it, you're like, oh man, that was terrible. But it's out there, like it's live radio. You can't really do anything about it. And I think that's part of what I love is being the live aspect of it. And you have no time to really think about it. You just kind of, you will eventually become yourself, I think.
94.3 Kilo, we get a new Disturbed album. We don't have a release date for that one, but it is, we should expect it at least later on this year. We already have one track, which is the one you are about to hear, but I'm really curious to hear the rest of this one as there's a producer change that Disturbed decided to go with. Kevin Shirko out, Drew Folk in.
To the maximum capacity in that setting, it's so weird to know how many people are listening to me, but I'm sitting in a room by myself. So I can be as silly as I want, I guess, because I don't have anybody like, I guess that's also the bad thing. I don't know if anybody's laughing at my jokes. Maybe I'm not funny at all.
What's it like having that power to just have your own show and do what you want with it?
That's a good question too, right? It's fun. I mean, we have some structure. I start my show with a segment that's existed on Kilo for years, as long as I can remember. It's called Mandatory Metallica. That's how my shift starts every single day. So I just making it, be a little bit of a Joe show, a little bit, just kind of taking what I know from the last person that was working there and what I did and did not like about what they did and just trying to implement, trying to make it more exciting, more, I don't know. I have that approach too of like, there's some times where it'll be a few hours into my shift. I'm like, this is kind of a boring air shift. And I have to remind myself, like, that's my fault. Like, I'm running this. Like, it is all on me if I think this is boring. So then try to, throw out for something interesting, try to reel in some phone calls or something. But it's a lot of freedom. But everything it's obviously pretty structured. We're an active rock station, so we got a lot of the new stuff playing, and we gotta play them. So that's what the people are here for. So.
Yeah, ultimately you got to do the job that they're paying you to do, and you can mix in the fun around all that. What's preparation like for you these days? I know how much you prepare for your Ram show. Is it similar when you're going on the air for your radio show?
Yeah, I would say it's similar. Just kind of sitting down and going through, you do like the basic stuff of going through the different websites of music news and seeing if there's anything that you can really hit. And it's kind of interesting because you'll do an hour and a half of research just so that you can say one sentence, and then like, oh, all right, well, that's out there. But I do that for Ram Showcase too. I can do these crazy like statistics and stuff like that, just so that I can say the Rams are this much better than whatever, And it's the same thing with doing the music stuff. Is just a quick little, and this band just won this award for this. Here's the latest song from that award-winning album. And just moving on. And that was digging into stuff and spending time and actually knowing the bands. That's a big part of it for myself, though, is this is a station I listened to as a kid. So like this music, I know it, so it's easy for me to kind of get wrapped up into it, is just consistently being involved in it, like all these new artists coming out or old artists with new albums, I follow it. So I'm with it.
Great. We're talking to Joe Branham. What was that? No show Kilo Joe. What was that?
No go show Kilo Joe.
Go show Kilo Joe. Yeah, that guy. He's your radio nighttime guy. What's your shift right now?
I'm 7 to midnight,
Nice.
Monday through Friday, and then I do 6 to midnight on Saturdays.
That sounds like my kind of shift to listen to. That's when I'm out and about listening to good music. I want to bring this back to Ram Showcase for just a moment. So you talked about the evolution of your show. I remember even in class, you instituted the camera turn for one of your assignments. Do you remember that? You were like, I want to do a camera turn and execute. And you did. It was good. But how have you been able to build your audience over time? Because when you're doing a show like that, and you mentioned the YouTube page and all that, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes care. It takes a target audience. How have you built your show from just you having fun to what it's become?
Well, it's kind of interesting that I feel like most people, I'm not putting myself in front of them. They're eventually finding me, which is probably not the right, path of distribution and promotion. But what is good about that is when people do find me, they tend to stay. So that's a huge plus. And then just trying to figure out those little deals, like meeting different people. Like I've got a kind of a partnership right now with Fansided, where on every Rams related Fansided page, the Rams website, ramblinfan.com, every single page will have my latest episode embedded in it. So just little things like that, just kind of trying to get, trying to get people at first and then reel them in. And then there's different things too of like the different things that I've learned throughout the program of like getting into the content as fast as possible. I used to do this whole intro thing that like, I'm not talking about my first, real news segment or anything until like 5 minutes in. And that's, a problem. Now I'm 60 seconds. I got to be talking about my first topic, yeah, it's, I could probably get better at promoting, but when it's a full production like this and I'm the only one, it's you got to pick and choose where that attention kind of goes sometimes. And unfortunately, that's the one that lacked. And I worry about more production. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be it'll be 7 years old in March, the show will. So it's just an accumulation over time at this point, I would say.
I got to meet Miles Simmons. If I can find the photo, I'll put it up for you. But because that was awesome stuff. He came by and found me and got to shake his hand, stuff like that. It was pretty cool stuff. They gave me a beanie and like a pin and stuff. It was really cool.
What are your future dreams within your business? And you're kind of doing two separate things right now, but what are your future dreams in terms of where what you've done so far is going to take you in this business?
Well, I will say it is weird doing two dramatically different things, working at a rock station and then doing Ram Showcase. I mean, it's very, very different. And there's times where I'll record my show and then I'll go to work and it's like I have to like switch my brain. Like, all right, we're not on that. This is long form talking for 45 minutes straight. Whereas on the radio, if I'm talking for over a minute, that's too much. I need to get out of there. So it's an interesting switch. But ultimately, I want to do sports radio. That is still the goal. That has not changed. The dream job would still be the title of the voice of the LA Rams, which is currently held by JB Long,
who used to work at my station when I didn't work with him, but I know a lot of people who know him. So
I know Jeff Radcliffe worked with him.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Showed photos. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But and I'm in no rush to kick him out of there because he does such a good job. But I also would say I think he's talented enough to get a network job, so I think he should move on and open that one up for somebody else. But, but yeah, that is still ultimately the goal. We have a radio station up in Denver. It's a sports station that is currently looking. I'm not in a rush to get out of where I'm at though, so I'm kind of in a weird spot where hey, if that could work out, that's cool. But I really enjoy what I'm doing right now, so I'm in no rush to get out. But sports would be ideal.
That's the best when you have a job you love and you're happy and it's like, okay, maybe another opportunity comes up and I'm open-minded to that, but you're going to be happy either way. And that's really the life we're all looking for, isn't it? So,
yeah.
And I love how you mentioned having the two different target audiences for your shows and different style for each of them. That diversity of being able to perform in different ways, that's going to help you greatly. I worked at a lot of different stations and I learned something different from each of them. And because of that, I think it made me more versatile as a performer when I got bigger jobs. So I think that's going to be the case for you too. How do you think that what you're doing right now is preparing you for, that step to go to sports radio if you ever do it?
Well, I mean, getting legitimate on-air experience at a real place, like it actually a solid sized station. I mean, the station turns 45 in February, so been around for a long time. Kind of tried and true, and to be able to be there is massive. It not only is it awesome to be in the building, but also there's like that side part of like that being on my resume is awesome. Like just like that little notch on there, 94.3 kilos is really cool. But I would say doing the podcast and keeping my mind on sports, but also being in the building of a real studio at a station, like that's. I kind of combined, they equal what I'm kind of shooting for, yeah. But and then getting that experience of just people that doing like my air checks. That's my favorite thing to do is my air check. I think that personality trait kind of started originally in throughout the classes of like, give me your harshest feedback, give me like rip me apart because I want to get better at this, and that's what I tell my boss now when we're doing air checks. So getting there.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I want to touch on that before we wrap this up is how did listening to feedback and then applying that throughout Full Sail help you to grow? Because that's really what we want our students to do.
Well, like I said, I wanted the harshest feedback. I was never in classes just to pass. I was in classes to learn what I'm doing and get better at everything. Get better at putting content together, putting even just like doing those like the blocks. I think that was one of my most fun assignments. Doing like a whole A block. That was a blast. But yeah, I would say that feedback is like, you got to just know that it's not a personal attack. Like I knew that when you told me, oh, you should have said this, or this didn't make sense, or like that, why did you do that? It was not because you hated me and wanted me to feel bad about myself. It was because you wanted the content to be better. And I still always took that to heart of like, it's never a personal attack. I want to get better at this, so I need to know what I'm doing wrong. And like I said, I carried that on into my job today. And that's the whole point, is just hear what you're doing bad. Don't take an emotional response to it at all. And just be like, all right, look at it from the outsider's perspective a little bit and be like, all right, this is what I got to get better at. So let's go ahead and do it. And they know what they're talking about. Like, you're not telling me to say something different or to schedule something in a different, structure or anything like that to just be mean. So yeah, it's all about the content and making it better at the end of the day. And I think that's where I'm at. Just taking that criticism, and I don't want to say criticisms, even just instruction or perspective, and implementing it from people who know better.
Love it. We're gonna have to take that quote from you and post it on our wall, right? That's good stuff, man. All right, we're gonna finish with something I call a dream sequence. This is kind of a stream of consciousness thing, real quick. You got to give me a quick answer, all right? So I got 3 questions for you. I'm gonna throw out there, all right? First one, who is your dream future Rams quarterback, keeping in mind that Matthew Stafford can't play forever? In fact, he can't even play this week. So go ahead.
We'll go Arch Manning.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe he'll say Arch Manning. Perfect. I love it.
We don't have picks forever, so we got to wait a little bit. So that's perfect timing.
Very good. When's your next first round pick?
I don't know. It's probably 3 years out.
All right. Dream band to be in that van with you that you bring to the station.
Disturbed. That's been my childhood favorite band. I grew up listening to them. They just released their latest album, Divisive. It's awesome. Yeah, that's my band.
All right, final one. Dream Ram showcased guest.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I would go Sean McVay. He communicates really well. That's kind of what he's known for, and I think that he would give me some really good stuff. And if I could get him to have that personality he has in his own podcast, where he kind of feels like the walls are a little bit down. He's not like talking to the media. If I could break that down, man, I think we'd have some good conversations.
You can do it on location in that place he rented for the draft when they didn't have
exactly.
one of those.
I want to live there, man.
That's amazing. All right, final thing. Any advice you want to share with anybody watching, whether they be alums or current students?
Do not stop. Do not stop. Like there was definitely points throughout school where I was like, maybe this isn't for me. But then like I laugh at that now, looking at where I'm at and where I'm going, because I'm definitely not at the end yet. I laugh at that mindset of being like, well, maybe this isn't me, maybe this isn't my personality, maybe this isn't who I am. That's hilarious to me now, looking back. It's like, oh man, that guy knew nothing. So yeah, just don't stop, keep going.
I say that about myself all the time now, Joe. I used to think I knew everything. I still think I know everything, but every year I didn't know anything until the next year. You learn.
The more I learn, the more I realize I know nothing. So
keep being that open mind, you'll go far. Well, I really want to thank Joe Branham, Sheriff Joe Baggs, for joining us. He has been a fantastic guest as always, and we're looking forward to seeing more great content from him, both with Ram Showcase and also at Hilo, where he is on the air. So thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure spending this time with all of you that are watching this show tonight. And for the rest of you, keep on living the dream.